Welcome to the Heroic Investing Show. As first responders, we risk our lives every day. Our financial security is under attack. Our pensions are in a state of emergency. A single on-duty incident can alter or erase our earning potential instantly and forever. We are the heroes of society. We are self-reliant and we need to take care of our own financial future. The Heroic Investing Show is our toolkit of business and investing tactics on our mission to financial freedom.
Welcome to the Heroic Investing Show, a podcast for first responders, members of the military, veterans, and anyone looking to improve their financial future and gain some freedom with their time. We teach America's heroes how to build passive income, build their startup business, and safely grow wealth through real estate and other alternative investments. We help current and prior first responders put protections, systems, and a team in place to help them build a life where they can focus on their passion, that service or product that they are uniquely gifted to share with others, making the world a better place for all of us. My name is Gary Pinkerton, and I co-host this show with Jason Hartman. This is episode 216, episode 216. Today's guest is Army veteran Charlie Gilkey. Charlie is the founder of a company called Flourishing, and he's the author of two amazing books. His website, Productive Flourishing, is a company that helps individuals, entrepreneurs, creative leaders start finishing the stuff that matters. It's routinely placed in the top 50 websites for planning, productivity, creativity, and team development. He's the best-selling author, as I mentioned, of two books, one called The Small Business Life Cycle, the no-fluff guide to navigating the 5 stages of small business growth. And that one is a topic that we recently talked about, and we're going to have Charlie back on the show to talk about that one. But I really wanted to dig into his newest book that's titled Start Finishing, How to Go From Idea to Done. He kind of blew my mind, I must admit, with a few of his very, very simple ideas. Some of it's about being productive, that you time blocking and calendaring and how to have a very effective morning routine and stuff. But his ideas and descriptions about actually how to do some of this stuff. And my favorite was how to separate work from home, especially when you're working at home, which is a challenge that I go through. So I think you all are really going to enjoy this. And you're also going to be, sending me some feedback that says, hey, yeah, bring Charlie back. Great guy. And like us, he's a guardian. I love his phrase guardian too, that he's going to talk about here in just a moment. So please help me in welcoming Charlie Gilkey. Well, Heroic Investors, welcome back. And thank you so much for joining us once again. Today I have Army veteran Charlie Gilkey. Charlie served, as I said in the introduction, during our time in the desert, our recent time in the desert in the 2000s. And since then, has become an expert at being productive and about business transition. He's really got two huge books out there, one of which we're going to focus on today, and the other one we're going to come back for. And the one I chose to come back for is about what skills do we have in the military and how do those transition when we start small business or just transition out in the corporate world. And the reason we're coming back to that is because we recently heard from an awesome guest on that topic, and I wanted to spread it out a little bit and get a different perspective, but first not pass up on or wait too long on the content associated with being more productive in our lives. And that's actually his most recent book. First and foremost, Charlie, thank you for joining us here on Heroic Investing.
Gary, thanks so much for having me. I was just reflecting. It feels like coming home talking to this audience, you know?
It does. And that's why I love doing it a couple times a week. Appreciate you saying that. And we were just talking off air that you lump together our first responders and our brothers in service in the military with them. And what was the word you used? Did you say guardians? Is that what you said?
Guardians, yeah. Guardians, and that goes way back. So, yes, I was in the Army. I was a Joint Force Military Logistics Coordinator, but I'm also I am also a near PhD in philosophy. And so that actually goes back to Plato's Republic. And Plato lumped the broad group of auxiliaries, military service people, police officers, everyone that serves society in the way that those folks do as guardians. So you basically had the producers, you had the guardians, and then you had the philosopher kings, or, the people that ran things. And so when we look at it, the guardians are those of us that are really the ones that are I won't say we're the bulwark of society, but we're the ones that, like, our bodies are used in society to protect society and protect the people of society in a different way than some of the other people. And so that's our job. And so I just like to think of us all as guardians, as opposed to thinking of, well, they're an EMT and they're a firefighter and they're police officers. Like, no, we all have this common bond of showing up, doing our duty to keep people secure and keep people safe and keep people out of harm as much as we can.
Yeah, and I love that. I love that phrase of guardianship or being guardians. And, there's another interesting, I guess philosophers do this, right? You guys come up with cool phrases or cool ways of saying things. But there's another one on your website called, the productiveflourishing.com website. That's one of your two websites and not the one we're going to spend so much time on today. But you talk about creative giants. Talk a little bit about that. That's a cool phrase.
Yeah, so creative giants are, they are the Renaissance souls among us, but they're not just the dreamers, they're the dreaming doers, and the ones that really do have that bias of taking what they know and making stuff happen, that bias for action in the world. But there's also this service-centric component to it. So we're not just out there making stuff for our own good, but we're making stuff to either make the world better or to leave it better than when we left it. And so being creative giants puts us in all sorts of challenges because, and I'm sure everyone listening to this will understand, like, there's this weird thing, Gary, where, like, we find the busy people and we give them more work to do. Like, we don't find the people laying on the couch and sitting around, like, with nothing to do and say, hey, here's something to do. We always go find the busiest, most capable people and overload them with more stuff to do. And so creative giants end up in the situation that, one, lots of talents, two, lots of responsibilities and lots of people asking them to contribute those talents to things. Three, tend to have issues with boundaries, meaning learning to say no to the wrong things so they say yes to the right things. And the fourth thing I would say, and this is really, really critical for the guardians that we're speaking to, we have a lot of talents and potentials and actual things that we can do, and we end up in the scenario where we have the curse of too many things that we can do well, right? If we were just one-trick ponies, we would just ride that pony all the way, but we're not. We have a whole menagerie of things that we can do, and so it's a curse of too many competencies, which ends up becoming super challenging because we can't focus. And the other thing, this is for guardian creative giants, and we might get into this a little bit more, Gary. One of the issues I've seen over the last decade and change is we don't do such a good job of selecting our own mission. We keep waiting for people to tell us what to do, or the next urgency, or the next thing where someone says, this is the mission, go do this, this is your objective. And that's great, we can respond to that. But when we get out on our own in corporate world or in, in sort of the entrepreneurial world or in the creative world where there's no one saying, like, go take that hill or go respond to this fire or there's a new call come in, a lot of times we flounder. Because it's like, well, we can do just about anything. We can do anything. What should we do? And what's the right thing? And is this really the best way I can serve? And we end up sort of that, like, running around in a circle a lot of times. And I'm going to switch metaphors here. We end up being that rocking chair that is a lot of motion, but no real progress.
Yeah.
And that's super frustrating. That's
right. Yeah, I agree with you. And I went through a really interesting journey when I left the military a couple of years ago, and that was to get a personal development coach. And we went down a lot of interesting rabbit holes about what I'm about, what I do better than others, what my unique genius is. Like, that's one of my phrases that I just love. I'm someone who believes everyone out there has a unique genius. I mean, a lot of people maybe won't call it unique genius. Maybe it should be called unique talents. Some people say that, but or gifts, right? And there's something that we're a lot better at than everybody else out there, and we take it for granted because it is so easy. And one of the exercises I had to do was ask loved ones and people that I've spent a lot of time around and cared for what I'm better at than everybody else that they know. And it was really shocking. Like, it didn't even occur to me that was a talent, that thing that I could do easily. And I think that, a lot of the guardians that you talk about don't don't do that either. Like they just assume that we're good at a lot of things, and we just kind of take for granted that everybody else is too.
Absolutely. And there's a transition that we have both from, well, I'll look at it this way. When I was deployed for OIF, I served with the 101st Air Assault Division, right? So the 101st is one of the elite units in the Army. And so everyone around us had this bar of excellence that was so incredibly high that was the standard, right? That was just the standard. And so when I transferred back into the civilian world, I still had that level of excellence was the common standard for everyone else. And it came down to simple things like when someone said they would do something, they would do it. That seems to be like a given, but it's not. And so, yeah, it's super interesting. And the challenge I think we have, this is all people, but I think Guardians specifically, is this counterintuitive fact. The things that you are the most genius at, I call them gates, which are genius, affinities, talents, expertise, and strengths. It's kind of that amalgam. You call it unique genius. I think that Danny Sullivan calls it unique contribution. But that special voodoo that you do, it comes so easily for you that you can't see it. Mm-hmm. And it should be the thing that you charge the most for if you're an entrepreneur or in business, or that you get paid the most for if you're on the corporate side of things. But we have the wiring reversed. We think if it's harder to us, it's more valuable. And so we end up setting the scales the exact wrong way, that we try to find that we accidentally find all the things we're not good at, or that we have to work super hard for, and then say that's what our value is, and completely overlook that it's this native background stuff that people come to us for all the time that we can't see. That's actually, one, our unique contribution, and two, what we should get paid the most for.
Yeah. Focus on that thing that you are actually uniquely good at, not things that everybody else can do too.
Yeah, if everybody else can do it, you're always a decision or two away from being replaced, or someone else getting your job, or being the second or third pick because of the random flukes. But if you are that indispensable player at work, or your business is that indispensable service in the business ecosystem, you can't be replaced.
Yeah, very good. So, all right, let's dig a little bit into this book, because I have tons of questions. So start finishing. It's about getting things done. It's about being productive. When did the book come out?
So the book came out September 24th, 2019.
All right. So fresh on the shelf, fresh in the box at Amazon, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's your second major book, right?
This is my second major book. This, here's the funny thing is when you look at what Productive Flourishing is about, like strategically, this should have been the first book.
Yeah.
But what ended up happening was with a lot of the material that I had in the small business life cycle, that was what a lot of entrepreneurs and my friends and my colleagues kept coming to me with. Like, I need to know more about that. I need to know more about that. And that's sort of this tension, because there are a lot of productivity books out there. Why do we need another one? Where when I wrote about the small business life cycle, that was something that people weren't talking about nearly as much. And so it's kind of reversed in the sense where, when I work with executives and business leaders, what I tell them is strategy execution depends upon individual execution. If your people can't get it done, it doesn't matter what strategy and what plan we have in place. Like we gotta fix
Sure.
their capabilities. We got to get them so that they can fire downrange. So it just ended up being backwards. But yeah, this one is about getting your best work done. Now, on that point, Gary, it's not just about getting through the to-do list, because a lot of us, especially the Guardians listening to us, we're really great at working through a list. You give us a list, we're going to get through it. It's what's on the list. Right? And what's not on the list, it becomes super important. And I think we all sort of feel that pang at the end of the week, month, quarter, or year, when we're like, man, I got a lot done, but the things that really mattered the most, they're nowhere. I still don't have the degree. I still don't have the business started. I still haven't started the nonprofit. I still haven't gotten my son out of the house, and off. And so in my language, if it takes time, energy, and attention, it's a project. There's no real important difference between what we might say as economic projects, which are projects that make your living, and those could be business or career projects, and the projects of our life. And unfortunately, we too often try to squeeze the work of our life in the leftovers that are with the economic work, to the degree that we aren't the parents we would like to be. We're not the partners we would like to be. We're not the family members we'd like to be. And we're not the community members we would like to be, because none of those have dollar signs attached to it and get deprioritized. And I should say, again, at the end of the month, quarter, or year, we look back and say, man, I missed the boat there, or I didn't make it to the gym quite as much, or I didn't invest the way that I needed to, because we are trying to fill in the cracks with the work that actually matters the most to us. So when I say work in this context, I almost always mean that significant work that will transform your life, transform your career, that will really build the future that you want to be living in, as opposed to just some of the easier stuff that ends up on your to-do list.
Well, and when you're talking work too, you're talking like the hard work of thinking, right? Not just physical labor, right?
Absolutely, the hard work of thinking. I mean, and so much of our economy, I'm glad you pulled that out, Gary. So much of our economy is basically creative knowledge work. If you want to succeed as far as, at work or in business, it's really going to be around converting ideas into useful innovations, products, services, or value in the marketplace. And those that are winning right now are the people that are doing that. If you're basically using your body to create value, you're going to find out pretty quickly that there's only so much value you can create where in our current economy.
Right. And there's a lot of people who can do that job, right? So you're a dime a dozen, but it's also impossible to scale. Like when you get on that just making ends meet, it's hard to get beyond that, right? Not with doing what you're currently doing. Improving your ability to stand out from others is what your book's about, but it's also about just getting efficient at it. So tell me, you talk about the difference between what was it? Habits and routines. What do you mean by that?
So you can think of, I'm going to try to use this as a chemistry sort of analogy, so hopefully I won't lose folks. So habits can be those individual atoms out there, like the one-off thing, whereas we want to think as routine as molecules, as combinations of habits that really take a lot of the decision fatigue down. It takes a lot of the wasted energy down, such that you can end up doing more because your body and environment are conducive to that. So a habit might be, for instance, to brush your teeth every day, right? Simple habit. A routine may be brushing your teeth, then followed by, reading before you go to bed, then followed by putting out, the clothes for the next day for whatever you're doing. You stack several habits together, and you end up, if you really structure your days correctly, and you have, not correctly, in a way that suits you, you can have a wake-up routine. You can have a pre-work routine. You can have an at-work routine. You can have a leaving work routine. You can have a getting home routine. You can have chore routines. And then so you just basically end up in this period to where you're never in that period where you wake up in the morning and you're like, what should I be doing right now? Just there's a lot of automaticity to that, and it works for you so that your mind and heart can be focusing on things that matter. Like it doesn't matter. Well, it does matter, but there's some important decisions in your work and life that we need more attention on than where you left your keys last night, because that frustrating thing to where, because you'd run around the house for 15 minutes trying to figure out where you put your keys, you forgot to think about that important meeting that you had to walk right into at the office. And so you're sort of 15, 30 minutes behind. And I think Guardians will understand this better than others. You'd be surprised how much being off 15 to 30 minutes at the start of the day can lead you in a cascade where you're behind for the rest of the day.
Yeah, it's
right?
awesome.
And so just setting routines up such that you capture and anchor in the right 15 to 30 minutes that really set you up for the rest of the day can really transform the entirety of the rest of your day. And so I really want people to think in terms, instead of thinking in terms of just a single habit, they're thinking, what are the chains and routines of habits that really keep me on point and keep me focusing on the right things and not dropping so many balls or running around in circles.
One of the things that I've recently recognized is that I'm so mentally exhausted at the end of the day that I try to power through and do things at the end of the day that I'm just, they require thought and they're just not good things. So I started actually, I had this I'll call that a habit, but I had this tendency to do things in the morning before the workday got started that was really thoughtless kind of stuff and not necessary to do when I'm at my most alert time. So, I have my hour morning routine, but then maybe while the kids are getting ready for school or something, or it's another hour yet before my meetings start, I'm doing busy work kind of stuff, starting the laundry and doing stuff like that, right? That doesn't require mental capacity. Yet at the end of the day, I'm trying to catch up doing things that do require mental capacity, and there is none of it left. So I've started to intentionally, think about in the morning, is this something that requires any kind of thought? And if not, I push it to the end of the day when I know I don't have the brain power to do the hard thinking stuff. Is that normal? Or is that just me?
No, it's not just you. I call it time blocking, and there's a lot of great material in the book about that and also on the website around time blocking. But what I'll say is there are 4 different types of blocks that I want people to think about, and I can go through this pretty quick, Gary. There are focus blocks, which are those 90 to 120 minute blocks of time. Like, as you mentioned, that's where you need to do some deep thinking, deep writing, sort of deep into something to make it happen. The second type of block are your social blocks, which is when you're your best version of human, and where you can actually show up and be with people and do it powerfully. For instance, I'm not a morning person anymore. I used to be when I was in the Army, but we all get that, right? But I'm usually not my best version of human at like 8:30 in the morning, right? So me scheduling a meeting for 9 o'clock in the morning is just setting myself up for failure. It'd be way better for it to be in the afternoon when I am my better version of human. So social blocks. The third type of block are your admin blocks, which is what you mentioned, all the busy work, right? All the sort of emails, the phone calls you don't want to make, the filing, the organization. And then the fourth block are your recovery blocks, which are where you do the activities that recharge your energy and take care of your body and heart and soul, right? So that could be meditation, that could be exercise, that could be, playing catch with your dog. It doesn't matter what it is as long as it's rejuvenative for you.
And are you spreading these throughout the day, or are they?
You have to spread these throughout the day. And so that's the thing. Okay. Like, if you are a morning person, usually what we see is that the first 4 to 6 hours of the day are when your focus blocks, where you're going to be best in the focus block. And that's where you'll hear sort of that common advice of maybe not checking email and social media first thing, right? Because the first thing that does is that switches your brain into admin block mode. But I'm going to go further than that, Gary. It goes much more deeply into neurophysiology in the sense of your brain starts operating in that way, that sort of clicky, fast response, seeing what's happening, and sort of it goes into juggling mode.
Yeah.
And juggling lots of things, but it can't grab onto anything that it juggles. Right? Whereas a focus block is where your mind, as it were, grabs onto one thing and says, okay, I'm going to wrestle with this one thing until I get it forward. Now, with that said, absolutely, a lot of people are waking up first thing, checking email, checking social media, reading the news. And I'm just going to say it this way. Hopefully it's not too crass, but that's the equivalent of eating crap for breakfast, right? If you ate crap for breakfast, and you understand why you feel like crap all day, because that's the first thing that you ate. Yeah. Mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, when you consume that stuff first thing, that's your breakfast.
Yeah.
And so what I encourage people to do is replace those habits with things, replace that. And that's where we can win this habits game, right? Is people are like, where do I find the time? Well, we can steal time and substitute time, right? That sort of 25, 30 minutes of scrolling that we will do in the morning, the first thing I would ask is that really nourishing you? Is that really doing work for you, or is it doing work to you? And if it's doing work to you, you can do that later in the day if you want to do it. But what's the thing that's going to work for you? Is it prayer? Is it meditation? Is it PT? Is it stretching? Is it actually making good food for yourself, or reading something rejuvenative? Like all of those things, it's the same 30 minutes of time, Gary. but it's what we do with that 30 minutes of time that makes a huge difference. And what I found is that when people change their morning routines to be such that it actually prepares them for the day ahead, and they get their own agenda and they get their own centeredness first, everything else works so much more smoothly. But the second, again, that you find yourself on that click hole first thing in the morning, like you're already fighting an uphill battle with your attention. You're already fighting an uphill battle with like whatever's currently got your attention. You have to find a way to get it on something else. And that's a battle I would just refer us not to fight in the first place.
Yeah, that's great advice. So I kind of saved this one for a summary, and it was actually at the beginning of our kind of conversation points, but I thought it'd be nice to use it to summarize. So you talk about in your book 5 keys that lead to self-mastery. And I'm sure we've touched on some of them, but I thought it'd be a nice way to kind of put a bow on the conversation.
Alrighty, so Guardians, you're going to love this because it's an acronym and a mnemonic that will help you. So it's IABCD. That's the acronym. Intention, awareness, boundaries, courage, and discipline. Intention, awareness, boundaries, courage, and discipline. Intention, where are you trying to go? What are you really about?
What's the why?
What's the why? That's the intention. Awareness, what's really going on? Are you paying attention to what's in your environment? Do you really know yourself well enough to be able to make good judgments, like learning more about yourself, much like you mentioned, Gary, like that's that awareness piece. The third piece, which is boundaries, a lot of people have trouble with. Do your boundaries, set it up so that you have space from the things that are derailing you and disturbing you, and space for the things that are really going to fuel your life and your work. Courage and discipline, they sound like what they are. Our guardians tend to do pretty well on courage and discipline. That's not a weak spot. Where we tend to be weaker at is on intention, like really knowing what our mission is and really know what we want to do and being crystal clear about that and staying on point. And then creating boundaries that allow us to actually do the work, as opposed to always being in the trenches or always being in the bus or always being in that swirl and whirlwind of life.
Yeah, and the boundaries were the biggest one for me. Like intention, I knew that I was clueless in, so I spent concerted effort in that realm, and that was by far the best time and money I've ever spent in my life. And I will always be grateful for Tammy, who helped me through all that process. But the boundaries, man, that was a mess. And I mean, here I was, I'd commanded a nuclear submarine. I've been in the military for years, and I would like walk outside to do something, and all of a sudden I'd be mowing the lawn, and I'm supposed to be working. It was just crazy. Like, I don't really recommend that guardians start a business from home and work from home. Like, go to an office for a while. It'll help you transition out of like having to go to work every day in the past. It'll keep you from driving your spouse nuts. But it also like helps you transition into planning your own day. Because like you said, a lot of times we wait for somebody else to tell us what to do.
Absolutely. And when when there's a 5-foot distance from your couch to your kitchen table, you take whatever you were thinking about from the couch and you just drag it with you to the kitchen table and back and point. And so having that buffer, it sounds like one of those simple tips that I give people who are in this position, but just walking around your block first thing in the morning, one direction, so say clockwise, and then walking back around at the end of the day counterclockwise actually can create enough of a barrier that you can let the work, you can have a good transition and boundary between those two things. And it's as simple as walking around the block, which might take you 5 to 10 minutes, but it's enough. It's enough to recruit your body. And, we didn't talk about this, but I want to slide this in. This is a George Patton sort of thing. Like, what is it? An active mind cannot rest in an inactive body, right? And so the trouble that we have is that we end up with these really, really active minds, and we're not recruiting our bodies to be able to help us. And so just that simple act of getting out the door, walking around the block, getting your legs moving, stretching, getting some distance from whatever you're working both ways, can substitute for that commute that we're used to, where that commute for a lot of people actually ends up being a boundary between work and home. We don't realize we hate it, but it is that boundary. And when that disappears, we don't know what to do, because again, we're always in this smush zone where it's both work and life at the same time, but we're really not getting anywhere on either.
That was fantastic. Thank you for that. That was pretty awesome, Charlie. I can take that one and put it to work today.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, gosh, as we promised at the very beginning, there's far more here, and we only talked about half of it than we would ever get into one show. So, Charlie, I can't wait to have you back to talk the other topic about what skills do we bring with us to the corporate world or to the civilian world, to our new businesses. Charlie, any last parting words? Actually, tell everyone how to find you. I've mentioned the website every once in a while in there, but let's be more clear.
Okay, so the big website is productiveflourishing.com. That's where all of my work lives. The website for the book is startfinishingbook.com. You can get a free chapter. You can learn more about what the book is about there. So if you're really focused on finishing more of the work that really matters, understanding that that's the work of your life as well, go to startfinishingbook.com. And
you'd be crazy not to be focused on that, since it is the work of life. Thank you, my friend. I'm real excited to have you back on here in the near future.
Thanks for having me, and I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you so much for listening. Please be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes. Be sure to check out the show's specific website and our general website, hartmanmedia.com, for appropriate disclaimers and terms of service. Remember that guest opinions are their own, and if you require specific legal or tax advice or advice in any other specialized area, please consult an appropriate professional. And we also very much appreciate you reviewing the show. Please go to iTunes or Stitcher Radio or whatever platform you're using and write a review for the show. We would very much appreciate that. And be sure to make it official and subscribe so you do not miss any episodes. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode.